Let me break something to you, all right? Life isn't fair. No matter how you slice it, it will never be fair. So stop expecting it to be fair. There will always be people out there that come up in perfect households, that have mom and dad work incredible jobs, and then they serve them these opportunities on a silver platter. So they don't raise a finger, and their entire lives are already made for them. Then they post on social media that they're in Aruba for the 12th time. I don't know, life's not fair. But those things are out of your control. You know, I can't control the fact that my parents are immigrants. I can't control the fact that they never stepped foot in a college. Nor can I control the fact that they've always worked tedious and difficult jobs just for us to get by. I can't control the fact that they got divorced. But you know what I can control? Effort. Effort. That's what I can control. As simple as that sounds, I can control showing up for myself every single day. Because even if I don't matter to anyone else, no matter how much I feel that way, that the world is against me, I matter to me. I can control that. I can control waking up at a certain time each day. I can control studying another hour. I can control running another mile. I can control staying strict with my diet. I can control those things. You see, because I'm an investment worth making. I've told myself that. And so every single day is showcasing to myself that I really do matter. That's what you can control. Okay? And some of you guys won't even control that. Some of you guys are wasting your time and energy focused on things that you can't control. And then you whine and act like a victim and saying, I can never get to where I want to be in life because of X, Y, and Z. When in reality, the only thing holding you back is you. It's you, it's me. The only thing that was always holding me back was not the fact that my parents didn't come from money, that I looked different from everyone growing up. No, it was because I was insecure. It's because I felt guilt. It's because I would hold every other person in the world accountable. But when it came to me, I gave myself a pass. I was holding me back. And I think this is probably my biggest pet peeve. I get these people, like, let me give you a little bit of context on me. My parents could never afford to live in the neighborhoods that we lived at, but they made some poor financial decisions so that we were always living day by day, right? And my parents would always be in debt, but they were trying to uphold a lifestyle that we couldn't actually keep up with. And so while it looked like we were all good, we weren't good. I promise you that. But I grew up in a community that was very well off. And man, you would hear this all the time. And this is my biggest pet peeve. It's, oh, I'm trying to figure out how to work smart so I don't have to work hard. What are you? Are you? Honestly, are you? Because I don't buy it for a second. Yes, I do believe that working smart is absolutely a necessity once you figure out how to work smart. But you gotta work hard. You gotta get enough body of work, enough experience failing to be able to know how to work smart, right? Rather than sitting there with your hands behind your back and just waiting for opportunities to fall on your lap, and you're like, oh, no, I'm not going to pursue this because I'm going to try and figure out how to work smart. It is outrageous, okay? You have to work hard. You have to work hard. You got to stop getting this mindset of, oh, I'm going to figure out how to work smart and then I'll work hard. Work hard first, and then figure out how to work smart after that. And then once you put those in combination, then yeah, you'll become a powerhouse. But stop running away from hard work just because you're making all these excuses in your own mind. You are holding yourself back. You want to exercise your freedom on the world, but you don't want to exercise it on yourself. You are so quick the moment the world tells you that you can't do something to shut it down, but you won't say anything to you when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You'll give yourself every excuse in the book to let yourself feel good about you. You will say, oh, it's been a long week. Oh, I haven't had much sleep. Oh, it's been really stressful for me. Oh, I'm going through a breakup. Oh, I deserve this rest. But let the government do that to you. Let your school or let your employer do that to you. Then you are irate. Then you are pissed off. Then you are losing sleep. Then you are outraged to the point that you are getting people to sign your petitions. You are straight up infuriated, right? Yes, that's a good thing. Fight for the things that you believe in. But can we please let those beliefs include you? Your life will change forever the moment you start taking full accountability for yourself. I can promise you that. And so if you take nothing away from this video whatsoever, please remember that one point. It is so important. I've been listening to this speaker a lot recently. His name is David Goggins, and his books have now become some of my favorites of all time. And he speaks on this concept called the accountability mirror, and it's one in which I've been applying to my life on a daily basis, and it has completely transformed the way that I approach everything. The premise is you look at yourself in a mirror and you are brutally honest with everything that you see. It's not about sugarcoating. It's not about saving your feelings. It's all about recognizing the fact that this is your life, that you must start taking control and stop waiting on someone to come and try and save your life, because it ain't happening, right? And so if I was to reenact this, and we use my hand here as a mirror, it would look something along the lines of this. June, your presentation was absolutely horrendous today. The audience was disengaged this entire time. You forgot a few of your main points, and that made you stumble across multiple slides, and it would continuously bleed in to the subsequent topics, and the whole thing was a mess. And it wasn't because the presentation was hard in and of itself. It was because you were so overly confident about it. You thought that this was going to be so easy that you could skip those practices, you could skip those rehearsals that you normally would do. And that put you in a position to fail, and you failed miserably. June, you took off a lot of sets in the gym today. You certainly didn't give it your full effort. You were acting like things were a lot harder than they actually were because you wanted to leave earlier. June, you didn't give it your 100%, and now you are feeling guilty about it. June, you didn't get a good grade on your exam. Again, similar to that presentation, not because it was difficult in and of itself, not because of that excuse in which you told everyone else, but in reality, you didn't try hard enough. Do better. And I understand that might sound cheesy or cliche or cringy to you even, and it might seem useless, but I can promise you it's quite the opposite. It is empowering, and it is necessary, because if you don't ever take the time to intentionally be real with yourself, you will continue to live this disillusioned life that everything is okay and that you are the victim and that you have no control over the things that happen in your life. And by the time when you are 50 and some chaotic thing happen in your life, some crisis happen, and it wakes you up from that nightmare, you're going to recognize the fact that it's a little bit too late. Right now, you have the responsibility to look at yourself in this accountability mirror and take responsibility for everything. And that is the first step for you to actually build the lifestyle that you've always dreamt of. It's not going to be handed to you. It's not going to be gifted to you. Again, life isn't fair. You don't have parents that are going to hand it to you on a silver platter. It's your responsibility. Go out there and take it. And I know that you can. Let me tell you a story. And this is one in which is dear to my heart and very personal to me because it has to do with my parents' divorce. But I want to share it with all of you because, one, I trust you guys, and I believe this is a family that we've created together, and I am so honored to have it. And number two, I believe it's necessary. I want to be as transparent as possible every opportunity that I get, because I need you to see that the things that I'm telling you aren't just pulled from thin air. No, these are real experiences that I went through. These are real painful hardships that I had to overcome. But it was in the process of overcoming those seemingly unbearable hardships at the time that I've learned so many of the things that have enabled me to be the person that I am today. And I hope that as I share these vulnerable moments with you in my past, that you can learn and take away certain things and apply it to your life without having to experience the same things, because I don't wish that on anyone. So let's get right into it. My parents divorced when I was in 8th grade, I like to say. And I've always been close to both of them, but at that age, I was particularly close with my mom. And the reason for that was because my dad had always worked 12-hour shifts, but my brother and my sister were then at the ages in which they had responsibilities outside of the house. They had clubs or sports or just hanging out with their friends on the weekends because they're much older than I. And so they spent a majority of their time outside of the house, whereas I was in the house with my mom, and my mom didn't work after she had gone through some surgeries. And she also never had her license while I was also in the house because I was too young to have my license. So we spent a ton of time together. So we were really close. She was a big part of everything that I did. And when I tell you that my parents' divorce was sudden, I don't know how better to describe that. To save you all the minute details, basically overnight, my mom had moved to a different country permanently, and I had lost contact with her for 3.5 years straight. Overnight. Did I mention that? If that sounds bizarre, it's because it was. It was a whirlwind of emotions at that time. I felt abandoned, broken, lonely. I felt guilty. I felt sad. I felt terrified. And what made matters worse was, it wasn't that I was just missing my mom, but to see your dad go through something like that was heartbreaking, because your dad's supposed to be your hero growing up. You never see him break down, but he had the hardest years of his life during that 3.5 years. He didn't really recover that quickly. And so I was having to deal with the absence of my mother, deal with my dad going through a really tough time. But to add another element to this, I was so confused. My sister and my dad, in hopes to protect me, didn't tell me much at all. Didn't tell me what was happening behind the scenes, and didn't really tell me all the details. And so me being that young, I was just lost altogether in life. And I had to grow up really quickly. But the funny thing is, I never used that as an excuse. Not one time. It didn't even register in my brain to utilize it as an excuse. I think it would have made a ton of sense if I stayed home for a few days. I think it would have made sense for me to skip practices, would have made sense for me to skip events. At that time, I was a club leader. I was leading at my church, but I didn't take off at all for any of these responsibilities because I knew I'd made a commitment. And if my parents had ever taught me anything when I was growing up, it was the idea that you stay committed to something long after the emotions in which you originally set them in have subsided. And now, even though I could have utilized my parents' divorce as an excuse for me to take some time off, I didn't. And I didn't even tell anyone. I didn't want sympathy from people. I knew that it was a big moment in my life, but I also knew that I needed to take full accountability of where I was in that current moment, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I was also accountable for me getting out of it. Does that make sense? If I was in that situation just waiting for someone to come and save me, I don't think it would have ever happened, right? Like, I don't think I would be in the place that I am today. In fact, I know that I wouldn't be, right? I had to still excel in school to be able to get all the experiences and the opportunities that I was able to get in high school and then in college. I had to work twice as hard because now I had to do a lot of what my mom used to do in my life, like pack my lunches and make my breakfast and things of that nature. But at an early age, in the most heartbreaking years of my life, I still wanted to remain accountable for me. And taking accountability didn't mean just putting my head down and pressing forward without dealing with any of the inner work that was required for me to fully heal. At that age, I just didn't know how to do it. But once I matured and realized years down the line that I was being held back by this emotional trauma that I went through that I never addressed, it was then when I looked at myself in what I now call the accountability mirror and said, you are not where you're supposed to be at because you never dealt with this emotionally. So you need to deal with it. You need to deal with it head on. You need to figure out how to journal. You need to figure out how to meditate. You need to figure out how to get in touch with your inner dialogue. And it was very uncomfortable. It was really hard. But I knew it was necessary because that was another aspect of me taking accountability, right? And so it's not going to be just a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year process. It's a lifelong process of always trying to figure out ways to take massive accountability for yourself in ways that you didn't even notice that you could take accountability prior. Now you know, and so you better take accountability, right? And I believe that everyone needs to have that type of accountability for their lives because life is hard and it sucks and it feels like a never-ending, painful quest. And I know how defeating that can feel, but you must take it in stride. You must learn how to extract the positives out of it, to build on the things that were good, and to work on the things that weren't good and figure out how you can be a better human being tomorrow than you were today. It's all part of it, but it's not easy. But I need you to understand that all of this is about showing up for yourself. It's about recognizing the fact that you got dreams, that you got callings, that you have a life that's ahead of you that you should be pursuing, but you constantly ignore that calling because you don't think you're good enough. You think that because life has treated you a certain way that you're not deserving of it. No, you are deserving of it. You need to go out and chase after it and try and attack it with full force because the only thing holding you back is you. Take a step back and look at where we are. A majority of us are here in the United States, but even if you're not here, you're most likely in a country that has all these freedoms and opportunities that most of the world couldn't even dream to have. And we have all these tools available to us, whether it's in us or around us, to handle the challenges that life hands our way in a manner that is much more convenient, again, than the majority of the world. And I think about this all the time. I did missionary work at a Navajo reservation, and they didn't have access to running water, nor electricity, nor access to the basic essentials or medications even. And they lived a life with so much joy. And it was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had because I learned so much. I learned what it meant to actually live life with gratitude. And their spirit, I can't describe it in words, but touched me in a way that really opened my eyes because here I was that had all these great opportunities, that had all the luxuries that life could ever offer, and I was complaining way more than they were. I was the one pointing fingers at everyone else and trying to blame people for where I was rather than taking accountability. You see, we have so much that we could utilize to our advantage, and again, use it for good. So I urge you to do so. I hope that this can be a wake-up call to figure out what is your purpose, what's important to you, not what society tells you is important, and can continue to live every day in pursuit of that. And whether you fail or succeed that day is not the goal, but the goal is to stay in that process no matter how hard it gets, because I promise you, even if the cost of winning, even if the cost of chasing your dreams seems to be too much, I guarantee you it will never be as much as the price of regret.